Advertising. Why is it so important? And why am I making this video talking about advertising? Well, it's funny to ask because depending on who you ask, there can be very different answers from everybody. And today I'm going to be talking about the hypocrisy behind some brands advertising, marketing, and announcing their products to the public. And I just have a few problems with the advertising and the way they announce the phone through keynotes to press releases, whatever it may be. I just want to address this because I've found a very consistent pattern with these companies that just go on about how great their product is with their marketing. All that stuff we'll be talking about in this video today. So without further ado, let's begin. Just to be more clear here, I'm going to be referring to a few brands just to take as examples, and I'm going to be defending Apple on some of these cases. But yes, I think, Apple's not perfect. They make mistakes too, and they might have made a few mistakes with their marketing, as I'll get into soon. But I find more faults with the other companies, the competitors. So I think it'd be good if we can start off with good old Samsung. So yeah, I still think Samsung makes the best Android phones out there, but in terms of their marketing, I think they could have done a little better than this. Remember this video? Yeah, don't watch that video. So in this video, I reacted to the Samsung Ingenious ads. Now, these Ingenious series of ads were mainly targeted at the iPhone and how Samsung in some ways was better than iPhone in their products. So say the Galaxy S9, they showed off how the S9 is better than the iPhone 10 in that ad series. Now, not to be a person who differentiates opinion with their smartphones, I think it's completely fine. You can have a Galaxy S9, it's a solid phone at that. But the way they marketed the S9 was very different from what you should be doing to get people's attention. These Ingenious ads were mainly targeted at the iPhone and how the Galaxy phones had more features like, say, micro SD card slots or headphone jacks. Yeah, funny that I didn't bring that up in the Note 10. And there comes my problem right there. See, the thing with the Ingenious ads, they always brought up about how they had a headphone jack and Apple didn't. And they always wanted to have that as a selling point with the Galaxy phone. But as we all know, with the Galaxy Note 10, they also agreed with Apple that the headphone jack is no longer required and they removed it from the Note 10. And my initial reaction to this move was, guys, couldn't you have agreed on this 3 years ago? Haven't you gotten to the time? Couldn't you have agreed with this when Apple did? Now, obviously, there is a reason they did this. They are not completely done, okay? They wanted Apple to take all of the blame for the removing of the headphones. Because they were the first major smartphone company to remove the headphone jack. Yes, there have been phones that have removed the headphone jack before the iPhone 7, just not as popular. And basically with the iPhone 7, Apple took all of the blame for removing the headphone jack. And basically these companies that followed after Apple just didn't want the blame to go on them. Like, after Apple did it, obviously they're gonna follow. And after Apple did it, no one really cares at that point because they're like, okay, so Apple removed it, now they're removing it a year later. I guess that's normal, so that's fine. They excuse them for that. But if they did it back in 2016 when the iPhone 7 was around, they would actually take on some of the blame, which Apple single-handedly had taken with the 7. And the same situation for the notch with the iPhone 10 in 2017. The Ingenious ads pointed out that the notch was intrusive and how it takes up space on your screen. But as you've seen, they've followed on. I mean, like the Galaxy devices, some of the devices that I've personally used and reviewed, like the Galaxy M10 that I switched to for a week, or even the Galaxy A50 that I unboxed. Both phones, those are made by Samsung and they have notches on it. But just few months before that, they always complained about how the notch was intrusive. Basically shooting themselves in the foot. Just calling out Apple for something they did and then doing it themselves later on. See, this is the problem with this kind of marketing, is that you don't bring up stuff that suck about the competition. You have to bring up stuff that are your strong point, that are good stuff about your product. You don't bring up crap about the other product. You don't throw crap on the other product and then make your product look better. Because eventually when you do the same thing, you're gonna get controversies, a lot of problems, people calling you out, and obviously just shame that you went ahead and bashed Apple for something and then did the exact same thing a few months later. And I just find that really hypocritical, at least with Samsung, with their ingenious answer that totally aimed at the iPhone. And sure, totally, you could compare your phone with the iPhone and say, you know, we have a longer battery, we have this. But then to mock them for not having a certain feature and then go ahead and do the same thing a few months later, that ain't right. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, so moving on from Samsung, now let's talk, Google. Yeah. So funnily enough, Google also does this kind of stuff, you know, throwing crap at the competitor and then saying yours is better. And they almost did the same thing. So with the OG Pixel, the Pixel 1 if you'd like to call it that, they bragged about how they had a headphone jack. And Apple didn't with the 7. But then as we all know, just 1 year later, they removed it from the Pixel 2. Why? I guess we'll never know. The Pixel 2 keynote, they almost like brushed over it. They're like, so you can now use the included dongle to use it with your old headphones. Okay, moving on. Don't ask any questions. They didn't stop and address it like Apple did. See, at least Apple, when they removed the headphone jack, they stopped there for a second. They stopped and explained why they removed the port. They said, you know, this has been a very useful port. It's been on devices for years. But I think there are better alternatives, so that's why we're removing it from our phones. However, Google didn't have an explanation for this. Since half the blame has all been taken by Apple with the iPhone 7, they didn't need to try to keep the headphone jack around because half the blame was already sucked up. And with the Pixel 2, if they remove it, no one would care because it was already done by Apple. And the same thing with dual cameras. They bragged about how they can do everything one single camera that others could do with 2 or 3. They bragged about how one single lens can help them do everything. In portrait mode, zooming in, they bragged about that with the Pixel 2. But then as we know, with the Pixel 4, they now started talking about how the telephoto lens can be extremely useful. Couldn't you have agreed on this when Apple did it with the 7 Plus? See, this is the problems that trashy marketing makes when you're trying to advertise newer products. After you've already done the damage, there's no taking or undo all that stuff now. See, now with the Pixel 4, they now bring up that the telephoto lens can be very useful. However, the Pixel 2, they just marketed it about how they didn't need the telephoto. And also with the Pixel 4's unveiling, the presenter, the guy who came up on stage, I mean, probably he's a good person, but the lines they gave him from that teleprompter were just wrong. See, Google, haven't you talked about stage performance? Haven't you talked about how to announce your products on stage? This is just bonkers. You can't just go ahead and bring up points that your phone doesn't have and the competitors do. Now let me explain here. So before the guy who was presenting announced that the Pixel 2 had 2 cameras on the back, one telephoto and one normal, he started talking about how ultra-wides are fun and they help you get really, really cool shots. And then right after he says that, he goes on to talk about how ultra-wides are not necessary and that telephotos are more important. And then he announces that the Pixel 4 has a telephoto and a regular lens and not an ultra-wide lens. So basically, they brought up a feature that the competitors had, called it fun, and then decided, yeah, we don't need that on the phone. Yeah, we don't have the ultra-wide lens, but telephotos are very, very useful. That's not how stage performance works. You're not supposed to bring up the stuff that you don't have. Bring up things that you have and are exclusive to your phone. Don't bring up things that the competitors have and you don't. Don't bring that stuff up. Like, aren't you writing these lines and then telling your presenters to learn this stuff and then just say it on stage? Haven't you thought through some of this stuff and just sprinkle through your mind that, maybe we shouldn't bring up stuff that we don't have on stage? And yeah, it's just so hypocritical that you can just bring up a feature that the competitors have, call it very, very fun, and then announce it and then say, yeah, we don't have that. I think we think telephotos are more important, so we don't have an ultra-wide, we just have telephoto now. You don't bring that kind of stuff up, okay? You don't do that. And yeah, that's just, I don't know. It's not that I want to rant only on Pixel or Galaxy. I feel many companies are doing out there with this kind of marketing. Even OnePlus, they did this thing on the OnePlus 5 keynote, I believe. How they showed in the unveiling of the OnePlus Switch app. So this was an app that you could get all your information from your iPhone or Android phone, the previous one, and move it over to your new OnePlus device. And then they were announcing that the OnePlus Switch app was available on iOS. so you can switch seamlessly from your iPhone to your OnePlus. When they were announcing that, they made a very funny practical joke on stage. Yeah, I think it's quite funny they did that. So basically they put the app icon on the screen, on the president screen, and then as soon as the president said that it was available on iOS, they added a notch cut out to the app icon on stage. So yeah, that was pretty funny. I like the presenting. The thing is, this is kind of shooting themselves in the foot. So they did this on the OnePlus 5 keynote. And then just 2 years later, so a whole generation went by, just OnePlus 5T, and then with the OnePlus 6, we all know they added a notch to this. So basically they made fun of the iPhone X's notch on screen. Then later, a few months later, they decided to implement a notch on their smartphone. I just find that very hypocritical. And also with the OnePlus 5, they went ahead and bragged about how they had the headphone jack in one ad, and they said, oops, headphone jacks won't work with your 7 Plus. And then of course with the 60, they just ditched that and act like you wouldn't notice it. It's just, very scatterbrained. You don't do this stuff. And yeah, I've been meaning to make this video for a while. And if you're watching out there, Google, Samsung, OnePlus, I know you are. Please stop this kind of marketing. This is basically shooting yourself on the foot, and it's not fun to look at. It's very, very hypocritical. That's pretty much what I have for you today. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about advertising of tech products in general, Google, Samsung, or even if you think Apple did a few mistakes. All that good stuff, let me know in the comments down below. Until that, this is your Hop Shaper, and I will see you on the next one.